Most people think you need a massive generator, a wall outlet, or at least a battery bank to get real AC power. But I'm standing here in my garage with nothing but a car alternator, a few wires, and something most people throw in the junkyard, and I'm about to plug in a 220-volt device, and it's going to work. Now, before you click away thinking this is some kind of trick, let me be very clear. This is not magic, this is not edited footage, and this is definitely not a prank. What you are about to watch is a real experiment done in a real garage with real parts that cost almost nothing. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand something about electricity that most people, even people who work with it every day, never fully think about. But first, let me take you back to where this whole idea started. Because it did not start in a lab. It did not start in an engineering class. It started with a dead car sitting in my driveway and a power bill that was making me angry every single month. A few years ago, I bought an old alternator from a scrapyard, paid about $12 for it. The guy behind the counter looked at me like I was wasting my money. And honestly, at that point, maybe I was. I did not have a plan. I just had this feeling, this gut feeling, that there was more power sitting inside that little metal cylinder than anyone was giving it credit for. So I brought it home, put it on my workbench, and started reading everything I could find about how it actually works. Here's what most people know about a car alternator. It charges your battery while you drive. That is it. That is the beginning and end of most people's understanding. And I get it. For most drivers, that is all you need to know. But when you actually start pulling apart the engineering behind it, things get a lot more interesting very quickly. An alternator is not a DC device. People think it is because the output that goes to your car battery is DC, direct current. But inside that alternator, the electricity being generated is actually AC, alternating current. The kind of current that comes out of your wall socket at home. The alternator has a built-in rectifier, a component that converts that AC into DC before it ever reaches your battery. So this whole time, every car on the road has been generating alternating current and then immediately converting it into something simpler. The AC was always there. It was just being thrown away before anyone could use it. That realization changed everything for me. If the alternator is already making AC, what happens if you just skip the rectifier? What happens if you tap into that raw output before it gets converted? What do you actually get? And more importantly, can you get enough of it to power something real? If you are finding this interesting and you want to see exactly how this experiment plays out, including the part where I actually plug in a 220-volt device and it runs, make sure you subscribe right now. This channel covers real experiments, real engineering, and real results. No fluff, no filler. Just hit that subscribe button and let's keep going. So I started doing the math. A standard car alternator, the kind you would find in most passenger vehicles, spins at somewhere between 2,000 and 8,000 RPM depending on engine speed. At those speeds, it can produce anywhere from around 40 to over 150 amps of current. The voltage output at the rectifier is regulated down to around 14 volts DC to match the battery. But the raw AC output before regulation, that is a different story entirely. The frequency of the AC coming out of an alternator depends on how fast it is spinning and how many pole pairs it has inside. Most car alternators have 6 pole pairs at around 3,000 revolutions per minute, which is a fairly normal engine speed, that gives you a frequency of around 150 Hz, not 60 Hz like your wall socket, not 50 Hz like the European standard. 150 Hz, which means it is not perfect household current. But here is the thing, plenty of devices do not care about that. Plenty of motors, heaters, and resistive loads will run just fine on whatever frequency you give them, as long as the voltage and current are there. And that is where things started getting really interesting, because I realized that the question was not whether the alternator could produce AC, it clearly could. The question was whether I could get that AC up to a usable voltage. 14 volts AC is not very useful. 220 volts AC is a completely different situation. And that is exactly what a transformer does. A transformer takes AC at one voltage and steps it up, or steps it down, to a different voltage. It is one of the most reliable, most straightforward pieces of electrical engineering ever invented. And it only works with AC, not DC AC, which means that raw alternator output, the stuff that normally gets thrown away by the rectifier, is exactly what a transformer needs to do its job. So the setup I built was simple. I took the alternator. I bypassed the internal rectifier and pulled the raw 3-phase AC output directly from the stator windings. I ran that through a rectifier stage of my own. No, wait, I am getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Because before I explain the circuit, you need to understand one more thing about what was happening inside that alternator when I first spun it up by hand. Because what I measured on that first test, the voltage coming off those raw terminals before I touched anything, was something I genuinely did not expect. and it told me that everything I had calculated on paper was not just theory, it was actually sitting right there, waiting to be used. When I first touched those probes to the raw stator terminals of that alternator, spinning it with a drill at around 2000 RPM, my multimeter read 63 volts AC, not 14. Not the regulated output everyone talks about. 63 volts of raw, unfiltered alternating current just sitting there, completely ignored by every car that has ever used this exact same alternator. And in that moment, standing in my garage with a cheap drill and a $12 scrapyard part, I realized that the hardest part of this whole project was not going to be generating the voltage. The hardest part was going to be convincing myself that it was actually real. Because here's the thing about working with electricity outside of what you normally see in textbooks and tutorials. Your brain keeps telling you that you must be doing something wrong. The numbers look too good. The setup looks too simple. Surely someone would have already done this if it were this straightforward. Surely there is a reason cars do not already use this, and those doubts are actually healthy, because they push you to keep checking, keep measuring, keep verifying. And every time I checked, the numbers held up. So let me walk you through exactly what I had at this point. The alternator was spinning. The raw AC output from the stator was giving me around 60 to 65 volts at 2000 RPM. Now, the relationship between RPM and output voltage in an alternator is not perfectly linear. There are a lot of variables, including the field current, the internal resistance of the windings, and the load connected to the output. But as a rough starting point, 60 volts at 2000 revolutions per minute told me something very important. It told me that at higher speeds, with a stronger field excitation, I had a realistic path to something much higher. To get to 220 volts, I had two options. Option one was to spin the alternator faster, significantly faster, and push the raw output voltage up directly. Option two was to use a step-up transformer to take whatever voltage I was generating and multiply it up to the target. I decided to use both. Not because one was not enough, but because combining both approaches gave me a more stable and controllable result. And stability matters a lot when you are dealing with voltages that can hurt you. Now, I want to be very straight with you here because this is the part of the video where I have to say something that some people might not want to hear. Working with high voltage AC is genuinely dangerous. I am not saying that to pad out the video or to cover myself legally. I am saying it because it is true and because I made mistakes during this project that could have been much more serious than they were. I am not a licensed electrician. I am someone who reads a lot, tests carefully, and respects the fact that electricity does not care how confident you are. So if you take anything away from this video beyond the technical content, let it be this: measure twice, insulate everything, and never assume a wire is dead until you have confirmed it yourself with a meter. With that said, let me tell you what the upgraded setup looked like. I mounted the alternator on a simple wooden frame and connected it to a 1.5 horsepower electric motor using a belt and pulley system. The pulley ratio was set so that when the motor ran at its normal speed, the alternator spun at approximately 6,000 revolutions per minute. At that speed, with full field excitation applied, the raw three-phase output from the stator was measuring between 110 and 120 volts AC per phase. Still not 220, but we were getting closer. The next piece was the transformer. I sourced a small step-up transformer, the kind used in some older industrial equipment, rated for an input of 110 volts AC and an output of 220 volts AC. I connected the output of one phase of the alternator directly to the primary winding of that transformer, and then I stood back, turned on the motor, let everything spin up to speed, and put my meter on the secondary output of the transformer, 219 volts, a C stable, sitting right there on the display of my multimeter like it had always been there, just waiting for someone to look. I am going to be honest with you. I stood there for probably 30 seconds just staring at that number, because even though I had done all the calculations, even though I had measured the intermediate stages and watched the voltage climb exactly the way I expected, there is still something different about seeing the final number, 219 volts, close enough to 220 that any device rated for that voltage would not know the difference, but a number on a meter is not proof. Anyone can put a meter on a circuit and film it. What I needed to do next was connect a real load, something that draws real current, does real work, and makes it absolutely undeniable that what I was generating was genuine usable AC power, and I had the perfect device in mind, something I had been saving for exactly this moment, sitting in the corner of my garage for 2 months, a full-size electric heat gun, rated for 220 volts, draws around 1200 watts at full power, the kind of load that will tell you immediately if your power source is real or if it collapses the moment anything actually tries to use it. I plugged it in, I flipped the switch on the motor, the belt tightened, the alternator spun up, and then something happened that I genuinely was not 100% prepared for, even after everything I had built and measured and calculated, not slowly, not weakly, not with that sad, struggling sound you get when a power source is barely keeping up with the load. It turned on the way it turns on when you plug it into your wall at home. Full power, immediate. The fan spun up to speed in under a second, and the heating element lit up, and within about 15 seconds I could feel the hot air blasting out of the nozzle from 3 feet away, 1,200 watts of resistive load running off a $12 scrapyard alternator, a belt, a pulley, a motor, and a transformer that I picked up secondhand for less than $30 total. The entire build cost me under $50, and it was producing 220 volts of usable AC power. I let it run for 10 minutes straight. I kept my meter on the output the whole time and watched the voltage. It sat between 217 and 222 the entire time, drifting slightly as the belt tension shifted and the motor speed varied by a small amount, but it never dropped below 215, and it never spiked above 225. For a homebrew system built on a wooden frame in a garage, that kind of stability was genuinely impressive, and it told me something important about why this works as well as it does. The reason the output stayed so stable is actually a property of the alternator itself. Car alternators are designed to handle varying loads without collapsing. That is literally their job inside a vehicle. When you turn on your headlights, your air conditioning, your heated seats, and your radio all at the same time, the alternator does not flinch. It adjusts its field current automatically through the internal voltage regulator and keeps the output steady. In my setup, I had bypassed the internal rectifier, but I had kept the field excitation circuit mostly intact, which meant the alternator was still doing what it was designed to do, fighting to keep its output stable under changing conditions. I had just redirected that stable output somewhere more interesting than a car battery. Now at this point you might be wondering about efficiency, and that is a fair question. This setup is not efficient in the way that a purpose-built generator is efficient. The motor I use to spin the alternator consumes more power than the alternator produces. That is always going to be true because of friction losses, heat losses in the windings, and the fundamental reality that no energy conversion is 100% perfect. So no, this is not a free energy machine. I want to be completely clear about that because there are a lot of videos online that try to claim otherwise, and they are all wrong. Energy in is always greater than energy out. What this project demonstrates is not the creation of energy. It demonstrates the conversion and redirection of energy, and more importantly, it demonstrates that the hardware to do that conversion is incredibly cheap, incredibly accessible, and sitting in junkyards all over the world right now. The real value of this experiment is not the $50 build cost, although that is remarkable. The real value is what it teaches you about the electrical systems we already have around us. That car alternator was generating AC the entire time. Every alternator in every car on every road in the world is generating AC right now, converting it to DC and using it to charge a battery. The AC stage is invisible to most people. It happens inside a component so small and so integrated that most drivers never think about it. But it is there. And once you know it is there, you start seeing electrical systems differently. You start asking different questions. You start wondering what else is hiding inside the devices and machines we take for granted every single day. That curiosity is actually what this channel is about. Not just car alternators, not just power generation, but the habit of looking at something ordinary and asking whether there is something extraordinary hiding just underneath the surface. Because in my experience, the answer is almost always yes. The extraordinary thing is almost always there. It is just waiting for someone to look. After I finished the heat gun test, I ran a few more loads through the system. A small lamp rated for 220 volts. It lit up perfectly. A power drill. It ran, though I would not recommend this particular setup for anything with a sensitive motor long-term due to the non-standard frequency. A small immersion water heater. It worked exactly as expected and had a pot of water steaming within a few minutes. Every resistive load I tried worked without any issues. The frequency mismatch. Remember, this alternator at 6,000 revolutions per minute is producing 150 hertz rather than 50 or 60. Matters more for some devices than others. Resistive loads like heaters and lamps do not care. Motors and electronics can be more sensitive. But for emergency power, for off-grid heating, for running basic tools in a location where grid power is not available, this setup is genuinely useful. And that is the part that stayed with me after I shut everything down and stood in my quiet garage, looking at that wooden frame with the belt and the pulleys and the little alternator that everyone told me was just a battery charger. The usefulness of it, the simplicity of it, the fact that the knowledge to build something like this has been sitting in plain sight for decades, and most people walk right past it every single day. So here's what I want you to do right now. If this video made you think differently about something you thought you already understood, share it. Send it to someone who loves cars or engineering or just figuring out how things actually work. Because that person in your life who always wants to know why things work the way they do, this video was made for them. And if you have ever done something similar, If you have ever pulled hidden power out of a system that everyone else ignored, drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and the most interesting ones always end up inspiring the next video. So leave your experiment, your idea, your question, and let's figure out what is hiding inside the next ordinary thing together.